afternoon.
This picture, we gotta go through the
Credits. Hi there. Are we on?
I guess.
I guess we're on. That's our cue. Good afternoon. You've traded one shiny head for another this afternoon. I'm Chip GORRA, and I'm down visiting my friend Marty Olson, who's asked me to join him and spend a little time doing what we do best, which is ruminating on the face of the world here, and we'll get a chance to talk to Marty in a little bit of depth, because usually you hear him with another guest, but now tonight Marty's the guest, and I'm the guy asking the questions. So
Well,
Marty, good to see you.
as the guest, I want to thank you for coming down, play host tonight, coming down from Springfield, and I've known Chip for virtually my
Years, yeah.
for my entire adult life and much of my youth as well, and adolescence. So I thank you, and looking forward to an engaging conversation about one of our favorite communities, which is New London.
Yeah, you know, I moved away for business purposes a few years ago, but my heart is still here, and I still pay attention to what's going on down here. And you and I, of course, talk at length about what happens down here. So I think it's great that we can get a chance to talk. And really, one of the reasons that we're here tonight is to talk a little bit about your political experience and what your ambitions are. And let's talk about that. We have some time, so we'll delve into it. But let's start a little bit with Marty the guy, because I mean, I've known Marty the guy since Marty was much less than a guy. But let's start when I say you. Let's say, what were we, 6 or 7 years old? I think when we first met. We're both Gardner Avenue guys. Let's talk a little bit about your local involvement. You were born here.
Born at Lawrence Memorial, and as you mentioned, grew up on Gardner Avenue, Harbor School, Buckley Junior High, Northern High School. And
where you were a three-letter man?
I was.
Yes.
Football, swimming, and I think I got a letter in baseball somewhere along the line. But football I played 4 years, and swimming team 4 years, and actually got a letter my freshman year in swim team, varsity letter. It's kind of unusual for freshmen in those days to get varsity letters.
Well,
in any sport.
Considering my basic inability to even float, I'm obviously envious of you. But we know a little bit about that, and then of course you went to college. You went off to Northeastern about the same time I went to BU. But then you had.
Well, I did Northeastern for a couple of years, and I withdrew. I have to admit that the big city won, and the temptations of school became a major impediment to a good time for a young man in a big city.
I know that feeling.
And I withdrew after my sophomore year, and worked up in Boston for a couple of years. I managed a pizza parlor actually on Causeway Street across from the old Boston Garden. And I really enjoyed that. And as a young man, I never ever expected to move back to New London. I mean, Boston's exciting place when you're young and single, and it's a great place to be.
No question. I was in Boston at the same time that you were. I was over at BU, and I know what you're talking about. And I've got a daughter who went to school in the Boston area, and I can't pry her out of it. But it's one thing to go to school in Boston and be a young adult, and then it's another thing to try to get real and raise a family and live in.
Yeah, and I ended up moving back to New London in my mid-20s. And initially worked for a couple of years at Minor and Alexander Lumber Company on Howard Street, and I enjoyed working there, and kind of replaced an icon at the lumberyard, Phil Jennis, who was he worked the yard. He was the guy, if you came in to buy things in the yard, he'd take you around and get your moldings and your 2x4s and plywood and things of that nature. And so I learned from him, and I handled that job for a couple of years. And then during that time frame, I also from time to time would work part-time for my dad, who was a general contractor in town, and my grandfather before him. And I had an offer from a local contractor to go to work for him. And I accepted that opportunity. His name was Gary Dasick. He was out of Nyack. And I thought that was a good opportunity for me to try to learn. And you've been in a family business as I have been, and there can be an element of tension in a family business that can be
You don't say.
uncomfortable, awkward, unpleasant. I mean, it's not all wine and roses, and so I went to work for this gentleman and did that for a few years, and then I was getting laid off in the wintertime, and I said, this wasn't a lot of fun. And my father was kind of making a decision whether it was time for him to hang up his shingle and retire. I think he was kind of hanging around for a little bit toward the end, kind of waiting to see what I may do. And we kind of came to an agreement that I would come into the family business. And 1980, I, in theory, took over Tobias Olson Contractor. And
It never happens that way, though, does it?
And my father certainly had cast a rather large shadow over the business. And quite frankly, when I look back at it candidly, I mean, thank God. But it was an opportunity to learn and have that guiding hand and knowledge to ensure that I have enough rope to stub my toe, but not to fail. And I think that that's important. And it certainly proved a good learning ground. I mean, I ended up running the family business for 20 years, where I made a conscious decision to shut the business down in the year 2000. I went back to school in 1991. I took a 16-year sabbatical after Northeastern and enrolled in Mitchell College, and I really enjoyed it. And I went and attained my associate's degree from Mitchell in Business Administration, and I felt so good about it that and did so well that I just rolled right into Connecticut College and pursued my bachelor's degree in economics with a government minor. So, and in 2 years at Con, achieving that, and I'm on a roll. So I said, well, I'm going to keep going. And then applied and was accepted at the 2-year weekend program for MBAs at Rensselaer, Hartford. And was able to get my MBA in 2 years. And so between 1991 and 97, I went from having no paper to all sorts of paper. And after achieving that level of academic success, I was kind of looking to perhaps scope out some other things to do. And I thought that I'd like to explore some things outside of the contracting firm in southeastern Connecticut, as well as the ups and downs. It's a very volatile business with the economy, and there were a couple of down periods where you just it's difficult to keep your head above water. And some of the issues I just found to be unpleasant, and decided it was time to move on. But it gave me a wealth of experience. I mean, for those who have never had to meet a payroll, that'll give you a little bit of
That can keep you up at night, no question about it.
insight in terms of what's important, because people are counting on you for their job every morning and that paycheck on Friday. And they're not looking to hear, I want an IOU. They're looking for that check to clear. And I always ran, as our family business always ran, legitimate business. We weren't running out of the back of our truck. We had all proper licensing and insurances and appropriate overhead that goes along with running a legitimate business. And again, that's part of that learning curve about life and how to, make a profit. I think that's important. Earn a living, on your own. And also working with people and motivating people and engaging them to achieve success. And I think that's very important. And I was able to do that basically from my mid-20s up until my mid-40s. And I've been able to utilize many of the skills that I learned there in areas that have delved in other areas. I mean, such as the Kiwanis in leadership capacities there, as well as earlier stints on the New London City Council back in the late 80s and early 90s, as well as the more recent stint I had on the council between 2009 and 11, which included 1 year as mayor of the city. So all these different aspects have, I think, given me a multitude of opportunities to broaden one's horizons.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, you do present, being my friend or not, you do present an impressive resume. Let's backtrack for a second, because we have some time, and I think it's important that people get a chance to know a little bit about you and some of the things that you've done in the community. I'm aware of it. But let's talk for a second about your involvement with Kiwanis, because that's something that you and I have been involved with together for a very long time. And the heights that you reached in the Kiwanis organization, a lot of people may not even know what Kiwanis is, but let's talk about it for a second, explain what it is, and what your rise through the organization was.
Well, in a sentence, Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to changing the world, one child and one community at a time. So it's a strong youth-based organization. I think an area that Kiwanis is maybe most well known for is our sponsorship of Key Clubs at the high school level. And I think in many instances, Key Club is more well known than Kiwanis. And rightfully so, I almost think. And but part of Kiwanis is leadership development and building fellowship and camaraderie, putting others before self, and giving back to your community. And I joined Kiwanis in about this time in 1987, so it's 26 years ago. And at the time, the club was, or the organization, I will say, had just franchised women to join. So women have been in Kiwanis now for 26 years as well. And the New London Club was kind of small, meeting at the Gondolier restaurant at the time, which is where Tony D's is currently. And it was kind of a small meet and eat group. We really weren't a dynamic group at that time. And some of the, I thought, interesting things as I was kind of new, wet behind the ears, learning a lot about a variety of different things, was I had been asked to serve as a second vice president when I first joined the club. What the heck's a second vice president? I really didn't know, but I said, okay, I'll do it. And in essence, you're on the board of directors, but nobody bothered to really share that information with me, so I really didn't participate fully in that capacity. But the next year I get elevated to first vice president, which puts you next in line to be president of the club. And the gentleman who was president, a guy named Gus Murby, who worked for Pete Marwick, well, he got, shortly into the year, he was relocated to Boston. So guess who was at the helm?
You were thrust into it,
and,
whether you were ready or not.
And whether I was ready or not. And it was an interesting learning curve, and one guy I have to give a lot of credit to for his guidance and his patience was Ted Hargrove.
Oh, absolutely.
Who was also my sponsor into the club. And helping me get organized and how to run a meeting and having an agenda and the things that you need to do to get people motivated and working. And what really juiced me on the organization was when I became president in my own right, which was in 1989 and 90. I went to the International Convention that year, which was in St. Louis, and I was just absolutely bowled over it. What a great experience. It was just fabulous. I was like, oh, man, this Kiwanis does all this neat stuff. Not that we could do all of it, but I mean, the intent is to get you excited, and I was excited. And I came back and was pumped and was ready to take the bull by the horns and let's go. And that's what really catapulted me in my interest in the organization. And I shortly after being president that first year, 1990, that's when I went back to school. So I kind of took a little bit of a break in Kiwanis. And when I got through with school and came back, got more active in the club, I did another year as president. And then I served as a lieutenant governor, which is a job that encompasses basically overseeing, there's 5 other clubs in our shoreline area that I was responsible for, being a liaison between the New England District of Kiwanis and the local clubs. And I enjoyed that experience. A convention that year sent me to Nashville, Tennessee. In between, I had also done a convention in New Orleans, which was a lot of fun. And I was really enjoying the experience of Kiwanis, the fellowship and meeting friends and expanding one's horizons organizationally. And our mission of service, which to me was paramount. And what great fun. And but from there, catapulting and running for the New England District Governor office, which I served between I served 2000 to 2001 in that capacity for 1 year, and that encompassed the 6 states of New England and Bermuda, I might add.
And that oversees, what, about 150 clubs?
Pushing 200 at the time, and it was about 6,500 members of the organization. And so the duties and responsibilities, a lot of travel, motivating. You got to get people jacked up and enthused, and to motivate and build their own clubs and to participate in broader projects with the district and the international organization. So again, you're constantly developing new skills, and I really enjoyed that. And then after serving in that capacity, I had the opportunity to serve 3 years as president of the Kiwanis Foundation of New England, which every member of New England Kiwanis belongs to, just by definition. And the signature program of the New England District of Kiwanis is the Kiwanis Pediatric Trauma Center, which is a partnership between Tufts Medical Center in Boston and New England Kiwanis. We've developed an endowment with roughly $3 million in it, which funds this program of research, education, development, training, and development for pediatrics. And this is something that was initiated back again in 1980, and to have the opportunity to lead that organization, to me, was just very, very exciting. So I tried to run for a higher up office, which I came up a little short on, but that's okay. It's, again, part of the learning curve. You just, I just enjoy, and I still do. I'm still a member of the club, and I participate and enjoy being part of what's going on. Matter of fact, the International Convention, which is just kicking off as we're sitting here
I was just thinking
now,
that,
is in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So the opportunities have been there to go in many, many different places. Matter of fact, the year I was governor, we had the International Convention in Taipei, so halfway around the world, to go for our Kiwanis International Convention. I've had the opportunity to go to Montreal a couple of times, and Denver, Miami Beach.
Well, one of the things I think
it's a lot of fun.
One of the things I think that we characterize you, and everybody who's known you, at first glance, Marty always seems to have a quiet demeanor, but the truth of it is he really has an enthusiasm for life, an enthusiasm for the things in which he becomes involved that's unlike anybody that I've ever met in my life. I've known an awful lot of people, and I've known you a long time, but you dig your heels in to do, and when you do something, you go whole hog. And the interesting thing I've always found about you is that you don't let things stop you. Now, let's talk about politics in New London for a second, because you've picked a particularly difficult road to hoe here, okay?
You mean being a Republican?
Being a Republican in New London, that's right, okay? And you and I have both served as Republican town chairman in this town at one point or another. We both have run for city council, you successfully, me not so successfully. But the point of it is that you could have chosen the easy road. And the easy road would have been, oh, I'll just go sign on with the Democrats and I can fog the mirror, raise a little money, and I can get elected to city council. But you did it the hard way. You ran as a Republican. You lost the first time, and that was, what, 20 years ago?
More than 1985.
1985, my God, it was 28 years ago. But you came back for more, and you won the next time. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I literally responded to a flyer that came in the mail, a piece of paper like this, and it's just folded over. I think every Republican in New London got one. We need help. Timing is everything. And at that particular point in time, there was literally a couple of backyard issues that were eating my craw. And government in New London was not responding in a way that I thought was appropriate for people who are living there, been there a long time, you pay your taxes, and then to kind of have government ignore you, thumb their nose at you. I said, well, this is not right. So I go to a meeting by invitation to Alvin Kinsel's home. He was on School Street at the time, and he and his wife Fran and Valita Grills, God bless her soul, they interviewed me. And over the course of this interview, by the way, that letter went out in '84, the fall of '84. So this goes back, this gives you an idea of the timeline. I said, you know, maybe sometime in the future, like now, maybe I'd like to run for city council. They looked at that and said, geez, we got a local boy here who's showing an interest. So lo and behold, in the fall of '85, I'm on the ticket to run for city council. And I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing or how to get from point A to point B. But it was an interesting experience. The council at that time was 6 Democrats and Willie Nahas. Jay Levin was in his heyday, as I recall. And they were a very popular collective group. And it was, like I say, an interesting campaign. I was basically at the whim of others to kind of guide me along what to do, how to get from here to here, and what interfered with that campaign as well was Hurricane Gloria, which to a large degree killed my campaign in that as a contractor I had so much work I just couldn't, I had to concentrate on business. Sure. So in any event, we had the election, and all the incumbents won. It was 6-1. And I have to admit I was a little disappointed. I'm not accustomed to defeat, and I don't like it. And I also was less than enthused with some of the guidance I had received to try to be successful. So, well, you know, maybe starting on Labor Day and going to November is not enough. We need to do a little bit more. And I made a decision that I was going to run in 1987, and that I would. I ended up going to every city council meeting for the next 2 years. And I went to all their committee meetings for the next 2 years. And I went to all the Ocean Beach Park Board meetings. And there's no more Ocean Beach Park Board. And I went to all the Water and Water Pollution Control Authority meetings for 2 years. And I went to a variety of social engagements and wrote letters to the paper every month, and was doing things to try to let people know that I was serious about my intentions and my thoughts and concerns about our community. And I don't come from a political family. I mean, we may have been in New London for a long time, but my uncle, Dr. Robert Olson, and my father, Martin Sr., and our contracting firm, we kind of did our thing, but we weren't involved with politics or local government in any way, shape, or form. And again, as you mentioned, in the Republican Party and not the Democratic Party. And but what occurred in '87 was, come in the fall, I banged on a heck of a lot of doors. I must have banged on half the doors in the city. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a tremendous experience. And running for office, I would encourage anybody to run for office. It's a great opportunity to learn about your community.
It does teach you humility, no doubt about it.
Well, it teaches you humility, but the thing that you learn too is that you don't have all the answers.
Right. And
you have to. The best way to learn is you got to listen. You got to hear what people are telling you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks have a lot of good ideas, and believe me, I have no monopoly on good ideas. And I'm not afraid to borrow other people's thoughts and ideas and not make them my own. Give them credit for them. Hey, Chip thought this was a good idea. I can live with that. I don't need to, be out there banging my drum. The important thing is we move forward. In any event, 1987, I was successful, and I actually ran number 2 in the city to Nahas, which shocked all the pundits at the time. And I was able to get reelected in 1989, which was up until 2009 was the last Republican majority. We had Nahas, Dorothy Lieb, Greg Massett, and myself got elected in 1989. Some of the dynamics were similar to what we're seeing now. I think for Republicans to be successful in New London, you really need good candidates, but you also need a little bit of a fissure in the Democratic Party. I mean, the numbers of voter registration is overwhelmingly favors the Democrats, and if they're staying together and holding things, it's difficult to achieve success. It really is. I mean, no matter how qualified or how good you are. And you also need, to be successful, you need people who are independent, unaffiliated voters, and Democrats who think that you bring something positive to the table, if they're willing to support you. There's not enough Republicans in New London to elect Republicans to the council or the Board of Education.
Absolutely.
So you have to have that crossover appeal, or you won't have success.
Let's take a second here, because we can take phone calls at any point, and I wanted to make that point because we're going to take some questions from Marty, and we're laying some groundwork here. But you can call 860-440-3154, or if you're outside of the immediate calling area, call 1-800-253-2285. Number again locally in New London is 860-440-3154, or 800-253-2285. Now we're going to get into the juicy stuff, since we've laid a lot of groundwork here. Now we're going to bring out the angry Marty, and the angry Marty doesn't look a whole lot different than the not so angry Marty, but it's okay, because now we can start to talk about some of the things that are going on currently. I think we've laid the groundwork here that you're a responsible citizen, that when you run for the city, it's not an ego situation. You feel that you do this because the city needs help and needs guidance.
Well, I enjoy this. I think I bring skill sets to the table that are good for the community. I mean, regarding my educational background in business and economics and government, business experience, literal business experience. You know, I talk about meeting a payroll, and when you've got people making decisions regarding employees, and they've never had to worry about meeting a payroll, you know, they really haven't lived on the edge. Mm-hmm. It's serious business. As well as my experience in government and community service, it's given me, I think, a unique blend of things that I've worked on over the course of many years to bring to the table to serve our community. And I love serving the community. I mean, when I've had the opportunity to be on the council, and I've served 3 terms at different times, it's been I've really enjoyed it, through some of the knocks and bruises along the way as well. It's not all fun and games. There's been times when it's been less than pleasant, but I still appreciate the opportunity to serve in that capacity. And the year that I served as mayor, which was just a couple of years ago, was, you know, arguably the best year of my life. I mean, I really, really appreciated the opportunity to serve in that capacity as a leader in face of the community here in New London.
But now you're looking to go back to the city council. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay. Well, just for a refresher for the audience, I mean, we do have municipal elections this fall, and that will be for the city council as well as Board of Education, and I have made a decision that I would like to seek the nomination to run as a Republican for city council this fall. And I have had an interview with the Republican nominating committee about a month ago, and in about a month they'll be having the nominations by each party, and I'm going to get nominated by the Republicans, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, asking to be nominated by the Republicans is a lot like asking to be made captain of the Titanic. And let's face it, you and I know that simply being on the ballot is no guarantee that you get elected. And clearly, the Republicans who have been successful in New London in the past are those people who have brought something extraordinary to the table. And whether we talk about the late Willie Nahas, whether we talk about what you've done, what Rob Piro's done, what Adam Spicacci has done, these folks have, in all practical purposes, been bigger than the party. And bigger than the party partially because the party hasn't been in a position to really do much to support you, because the numbers the number of voters are, but also because of some disorganization within the party. And not to go throwing brickbats at the Republican Town Committee, you and I have both been in that position, and we know it's not an envious position. It's not a position that one would envy.
It's difficult when you historically are unable to win. Politics is a game for winners.
Yeah.
And when you're coming up short, it's difficult to cultivate candidates because who wants to put the time and effort in to lose? It's difficult to raise money because people don't want to put good money after bad, and people like to hop on their bandwagon. They like winners, and New London it's very much tilted to the Democratic Party by sheer registration, as in many other urban areas. It's not. New London's not unique in that regard. However, I still think that Republicans have been and can be successful. You have to work extraordinarily hard and really be passionate about what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, and I think that resonates with the public. Well, and that opportunity is there if individuals are willing to put that effort. And you've just mentioned a number of people who have been elected. Now, there's not a lot of them. I mean, there's a few others. I mean, Reed Burdick, Greg Massett,
sure.
Dorothy Leib. Going back a little further, you had Tom Harrington and Tom DiMaggio.
Republicans, unfortunately, and I say this because you and I are both Republicans, have a tendency in this town to shoot themselves in the foot. And part of the reason is some of the internecine struggles that take place within the town committee with personality issues. The Democrats have always, even though they're a larger organization, have always been better at putting at least hiding those little struggles and putting up a more united front. This year's a little different, and we can talk a little bit about why it's different, but let's talk about the rationale for running as a Republican for a second, because having been a former mayor, having been a city councilor on for 3 different terms, the truth of it is that you could pretty much assure that if you ran as a Democrat, that you'd be elected. But you're choosing a road that is deliberately more difficult. And in the last election, in the mayoral election, things were badly scattered. Let's talk about that a little bit, because the Republicans were not able to marshal their forces particularly effectively.
Well, I think that in the mayoral election, where we changed our form of government, which we were charting new territory, all new ground, and it's also one of the reasons why I'm anxious to run for council this fall, is to help make some corrective measures.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think some areas where we're spinning out of control, is that at that time,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we do have a phone call.
Well, why don't we take the call?
All right. You've done this before.
You're going to push this button.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, you're on the air.
Good evening. How are you doing? This is Dennis from New London. How you doing, Marty?
I'm doing well, Dan. How are you?
I've been sitting here listening to you guys for a while, and I apologize for not knowing the gentleman you're sitting here with. I heard him say he was a mayor at one time.
Oh, no. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the Republicans' mission statement, for lack of a better word, the vision statement, their mission statement, principles and stuff. And when you look at this on paper, it sounds really good. Now, the problem I see is you got to implement all the things you're saying on this statement. And I think in this town, if, according to this thing, they're looking out for the best interests of the people of the city of New London. And that's what we got to focus on. Also, what we got to do is you got to reach out to those disgruntled Democrats. You got to reach out to the independents, maybe some Green Party people, and let them know we've got to change what's going on in our city. We got to work together. We're not asking you to become any certain party. Be whatever party you want to be, but at this point in time, you got to come together for what's best in the city, and you got to elect the people that are going to do that. We can't keep going with what we got, because for 40, 50 years, it hasn't done a whole lot.
Well, Dan, if you don't mind, I think I've got a good track record articulating.
You have a good track record, Marty.
Just as you're saying there, once you're elected to serve everybody. You're not elected to serve a particular party. I mean, you've got your views and you've got your conscience and your values, and those will guide you. But you have to work with people, and I think I've got a good record working with folks from the other party as well. If you're going to accomplish things, you need to work together. If you're working, you can't be the guy of no. You've got to be the, where do you want to go and how are you going to get there? You've got to be positive.
But you can't also be the guy of yes, too, all the time. I mean, it's got to be what's right for the people. If it's a yes vote, it's a yes vote. If it's a no vote, it's a no vote.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm looking to run this fall is that I'm less than enthused with what's been emanating out of our administration. Our council as a body has been sitting there basically allowing a lot of stuff to happen that I'm finding a bit disconcerting.
Now, they have on July, I forget what the date is when they come out with their nominations, the Republican Party. From that point on, the campaign for the Republicans should start. And they need to reach out to these other groups and ask them to join in and help them change this city without changing their parties, if that's what it takes. If they want to become a Republican, that's all the better. But if they don't and they want to help, then that's what they need to do. Marty, I want to wish you luck, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call.
All righty, bye-bye.
The off button.
Brings up an interesting point.
Well, I mean, getting back to that
things are one-sided right now.
Well, and they are. But getting back to the call as well as your prior question, I mean, I think that for the Republicans to achieve success this fall is going to require, as always, quite frankly, good candidates to start, and a little bit of discord in the Democratic Party, and indications are that there actually may be some. And with that, Republicans can achieve some success because people will be looking for good, solid alternatives. We had in the paper just over the weekend an op-ed piece by Paul Chenier. Actually, it was an editorial piece discussing a new member in our community, Keith Robbins, who's seeking the Republican nomination as well, who is a former first selectman in the town of Basra. And he brings I think, a good resume to the table as well. And the point being is, what is the GOP's party? And this gets to Dennis's issues. What are our goals? And how are we going to achieve them? Is the goal to get Republicans elected? If the answer to that question is yes, how are we going to accomplish that goal? Now, if the Republicans are going to take the attitude, we're going to look through the rearview mirror and we're going to fight battles from years gone by, that's a recipe for failure, quite frankly. And I sincerely hope that we don't go down that path.
You brought up something interesting, not to dwell on it, but in the city of New London, to be elected as a Republican candidate, you have to be clearly and demonstrably better than your Democratic counterpart in order to stand out, just because the sheer numbers of Democrats are going to work against you. You can run a mediocre Democrat, somebody who has little or no visibility in the community, and they have a better than even chance of winning. But a Republican who is seeking the nomination has to be vocal, has to be articulate, has to be well thought out, because otherwise they're going to get lost. They're going to get buried. That's why there are relatively few, the Republicans who are successful, and we can probably count on one hand those people who are.
Currently, and two hands over the course of many, many years.
Right. Are those people who demonstrate those qualities.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back 4 years ago, 2009 campaign, when I ran and was successful, joining Rob Pirro, who's served, I think that was his 8th term getting elected, which is a major achievement in and of itself. And Adam Spracacci, who's been an up-and-comer, and Adam works extraordinarily hard. And his due diligence on the issues, his preparation is second to none. I mean, I value his preparation, periodically I don't agree with his conclusions, but you know, we can agree to disagree from time to time, and I think that's an important consideration. And but I know that he's done his due diligence, and he's looking out for the community first. He's not looking at partisan politics. And also, 4 years ago, we had John Russell ran as a Green Party and was able to get elected, cross-endorsed by the Republicans, I might add. Which gave the Republicans that term a functional majority for 2 years. And, but again, it gets back to having good candidates that people are confident and comfortable with, and also having a little bit of a discord on the other side.
Yeah. 860-440-3154, out of the area, 800-253-2285. We're waiting for your call. Let's talk for a second about the people who have run successfully in the past, and you've certainly been one of them. And one of the things that we've talked about is the fact that those people transcend conventional politics. I think you kind of fit, without blowing any smoke up your butt, I think that you kind of fit that same role. What else does a Republican have to do? What role do they have to play in the city to be effective?
Well, historically, in a minority position, you're playing the loyal opposition. Your job is to be the conscience of the actions or inactions of the majority. And when they're right, you get on board. But if you think that they're going down the wrong path, you have a responsibility to say so and articulate your arguments so that the public can see both sides of the issue. I think that's an important consideration. A challenge that the Republicans have had in London is the fact that we have not led often. 1973, 1989, 2009, and 2-year increments. When you have a majority, and it's a slim majority, 4-3, but people still expect you to lead, and the role is much different when you're expected to lead as opposed to play the loyal opposition. People want you to get things done. They don't want you to just be there, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong.
You made an interesting point when we had a conversation a while back about when you were mayor and the fact that some of your support actually came from the Democrats during the nomination process, but more importantly, that while you were mayor, when the votes were being taken in the city council, they were not necessarily along party lines.
The entire term they weren't. I mean, I think we had one party line vote that I can think of over the 2-year period, which was very partisan, but other than that, the votes were all over the place. And the entire body was voting their conscience on each issue as it came to the table.
Well, ideally, isn't that what's supposed to happen?
You'd like to think so. And
so what's happening now? Let's just fast forward a second, because we're talking history. What's happening now?
Well, we have a new government, and with the new government and some of its growing pains, we're charting a new course here. And it is a new course. It's been hell on wheels. There's been high drama. And that high drama I find to be exceptionally disconcerting, because in order for people to feel good about our community, people have choices, and we lose sight of that sometimes. I think here in London we think we're in a little bubble, and everything revolves around us. But we're in a highly, highly competitive environment, whether it's for people to come in to live, buy houses, or rent apartments, where they want to send their kids to school, where they want to invest, open a business. They have choices. They can go all the way to Waterford, maybe Mystic, Manchester, Boston, Springfield, Nebraska, maybe Taiwan. They don't have to come here. So as a community, it's up to us as a group and our leaders to cultivate an environment that's going to be appealing, where people are going to want to come here. That's the role of our leadership, and to be having this this high level of drama, primarily emanating out of the mayor's office, is counterproductive to that.
I agree. We had this conversation earlier, but and not to dwell on it, but when people look at a community and where they want to live as opposed to where they might be trapped, the judgments that they make about the community are based on solid business decisions. If I invest in a home here, can I get my money out? Am I going to be safe if I live here? Is my house going to be broken into? Is my family going to be safe? Are my kids going to be well educated? Am I going to be able to get along with my neighbors? These are all very basic tenets of where we want to live. And it looks like New London is failing that.
Well, there's been some slippage with this new government, which is staggering to me in two of the areas that you've just outlined. One is in the area of clean. We have clean and safe. Garbage pickup, a basic service provided by the city, has become extraordinarily haphazard. My garbage day and recycling day is Friday, and it's a mystery week to week whether it's going to get picked up. That to me is not conducive to good government.
Well, it doesn't inspire any confidence, for sure.
And there was just a post online before coming over here this afternoon from a woman up in the north end of the community, up in the Norwood Avenue section. No garbage pickup up there today. So it's perhaps this is universal. And these aren't holiday weeks where there's a Monday holiday and their schedule may be a little bit skewed. So it's becoming haphazard. And you start leaving your garbage out on a day you expect it to be picked up, and it's not picked up, it's left over a weekend. This is
particularly 90-degree weather.
It doesn't look good. It can produce vermin and other it's not healthy.
Well, it's a breakdown of the covenant that the city has with the people who live here.
And
that's one of the things that people have a right to expect.
And there was a letter in this morning's paper from a guy who lives up on Cedar Grove Avenue regarding the lack of maintenance of city property across the street from him. And this is the type of stuff that you expect government to do. Basic, simple services. You take care of the basics first, and you worry about these, the home runs later. But you hit a lot of singles, and people, that's how Giuliani cleaned up Times Square, was getting rid of the little problems one by one, not tolerating graffiti, as an example. We can't tolerate this. This is not acceptable. And then you've mentioned safe, public safety. We've got issues right now in the police department that are exceptionally disturbing. The staffing right now is down about a third from where it was when I was mayor 2 years ago. Canines have been cut from 3 dogs to 1. So 2 dogs have just been cut out recently. We've got officers leaving in droves. We're training them and they're leaving. What's going on here? And is this an environment that's going to encourage people from the outside to willingly come into the community? I think they'll have a reason to pause and say, what the heck's going on in there?
I agree. We have a phone call. Let's take it while we can. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening. One thing I'd like to add, if I may, the reason New London has no money, everyone says how broke New London is. It's quite obvious that they're not getting a tax revenue. And when you can afford to let LM Hospital, to take Howard Street off the tax list, when you can afford to let Mitchell College take Michael Sateri off the tax list, when all these nonprofit organizations take all these tax-paying, revenue-generating businesses off the tax list, you and I and all these other people have to absorb that money that's now no longer there. And it's a joke. Why should I have to pay for non-profit people who can afford to buy stuff and not pay taxes on it? That's an absolute outrage.
Well, you've got really good points there. I can't argue them, other than that the state law dictates us on those policies. We have to make do with what we've got and build our community with strong economic development, which comes from building on the foundation blocks that we were talking about earlier in the program.
Thank you for your call.
You should have two sets of laws in Connecticut. You should have a set of laws for the people who live down Greenwich, Darien, and Fairfield, and then you should have a set of laws for people who live up here. So I'm sure nonprofit businesses taking off the tax roll in Greenwich, Darien, Fairfield, Stratford doesn't have an impact like it does up this end of the state. I mean, let's be realistic. You got two horses here. That's about what you have. You have the haves and have-nots. And I'm fed up. I'm getting out of New London. I'm just letting everybody know I've had it with New London. A couple of weeks, it's goodbye. Can't afford the taxes here. The state, I can't afford to retire here anyway. This state's a joke. You work here 48 years, and come time to retire, you can't afford to retire in the state you earned your living in. I tell you, at number 50 in economic recovery in the country, this state's a mess. Governor Roy did nothing for us here. Sorry, fellas, but that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you for the call.
Thanks for the call.
Well,
here's
an element of frustration there.
Well, you know what? The fact that he was able to articulate that frustration the way he is, I think, is probably a demonstration of the frustration that many people in New London feel. They may not articulate it quite as loudly as he did, but I think in some cases there may very well be a sense of hopelessness here, that maybe the government is not capable of doing anything more for them than what they're doing right now.
Well, but see, but I would take exception to that, because I feel strongly that the prior term between 09 and 11, before we changed the government, it was the last with the former city manager, former government, an awful lot of positive activity was taking place. And I don't even go back to the prior term, which happened to be a democratically controlled group, but there was a 4-year period where there was a significant amount of teamwork, and the council as a body working, I think, relatively well together in a bipartisan fashion, and working together for collective good. And it showed. There were positive, and you're not going to solve all these problems overnight. You know, the key to success here, and I've stated this before, and it's the truth, and it's not fun, and it's not sexy, but it's sustained, hard work. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean...
And a continuous policy that is sane and predictable, that allows people to feel good about their investment in the community because they won't feel like they'll be usurped somewhere down the line.
Yeah. And people, right? You know, nobody likes to pay taxes that I know.
No.
But people also want to feel that they're deriving a level of value and service for their tax dollar. And what we've been describing here, the slippage in the last 18 months is tough stuff to swallow.
Okay, we've got just a couple of minutes, so let's just hit on a couple of things here. What can the city council do? We've got a mayor here who looks like he's running everything.
Well, he is, and part of the this multi-pronged. New councils got a charge to stand up to the mayor when they think that he's overreaching, overstepping, overreaching the charter in particular in many, many areas, and step up and saying, you can't do this, and being loud and clear, and if necessary, not fund some of the things that he's doing, often before getting council approval, which is inherently wrong. That needs to be addressed. There's a need for charter revision, which I support. We need to deal with some of the filling in gaps with this new government, and that can only be done by charter revision. This sitting council has had 2 opportunities to set up a charter commission, and both times they defeated it. I think that was wrong. They were the prevailing attitude was it could be dealt with via ordinances. Ordinances can be changed by bare, minimum, a bare majority, should I say, 4-3, by council on a whim, week to week, for that matter. That does not, I think, set the good policy. The charter requires significantly more thought. The overriding of a veto from 6 to 1 needs to go to 5 to 2. And I know we're running out of time, and I need to get you back, Chip, because the facilitation